guys, it's Hayden here, and in today's video we're going to be doing, or probably one of the hardest objectives in all of primary school, particularly when it comes to grammar. Now, we're going to be, of course, looking at the different forms of tenses. Now, I don't mean we're going to be going over what past tense is, what present tense is, what future tense is. I'm going to presume you already know the basics of what tenses are. We're going to be going over things like simple tense, progressive tense, and perfect tense, the different verb forms, quite tricky. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey of learning, and then afterwards we're going to look at some actual questions from old GPS papers, the SATs papers, and we're going to solve them with our new knowledge. Okay, so of course pause this video at any point to think and just absorb what we're saying. We're going to go over quite a lot today, but here we go. Let's start this journey. So let's start right at the beginning. Which words in a sentence actually determine the tense? Hopefully you're thinking, well, it's this word right here, yeah? It's the verb, isn't it? So in this sentence, Dylan ate a chocolate bar. The verb ate, which comes from the verb family to eat something, to eat, is determining what tense this is in. And in this case, it's showing us that it's in the past tense. Now, a lot of past tense verbs end in ed. Sometimes they don't. Like ate comes from eat. It's an abstract past tense verb. So now we understand that we're looking at the verbs. Let's go through the different types, the different forms of tense. And we're going to start right here with something called the simple tense. Now, I've got a bit of a table underneath this grey box here that I'll be revealing as we go to help you understand that each of the different forms of tense can be used in the past, the present, and the future. So we kind of end up getting this grid. If we've got 3 different forms and 3 different tenses, we end up getting 9 altogether, 9 different verb forms. I know, it feels like a lot, doesn't it? But hopefully it will make sense as we go. So let's reveal the simple tense. Now, the simple tense is something that you already know. You've been doing this since you first learned about tense because it's kind of the natural one. It's the easiest one. It's the one that we go to first when we teach children about what tense even is. So here's my summary. To write something in the simple tense, whether it's the past, the present, or the future, which you can see in these 3 sentences here, the rule is as simple as this. You just need to use one word. What is the most simple version of writing that word or that tense that you can think of? Rather than Dylan had been eating a chocolate bar, which is 3 words, you're just going to say Dylan ate a chocolate bar, and that's in the past. Okay. In the present, you're going to say Dylan eats a chocolate bar. And in the future, you're still going to use one word, but you're just going to use the word will on top of that as well. So for any of these, when you're in the future, you're going to put the word will in front of it. So ate, eats, and eat is the simplest version of this verb form. Okay, so you've done that before. Next up, on the next slide, we're going to look at the progressive version of this tense. So we're going to start getting to the stuff that people find trickier now. So the progressive version of this tense, there's a simple rule to help you learn the progressive, which is this. You must use the verb and it must have ing on the end. Okay, so think of the verb eat, it becomes eating. But you might be thinking, it doesn't make sense if I say Dylan eating a chocolate bar, does it? It doesn't make sense. So when you're writing in the progressive tense, you often have to use another verb before your main verb to make it make sense. Just think common sense. Things like was, is, and will be. Okay, so the past progressive tense, the present progressive tense, and the future progressive tense all actually use the same main verb. Can you see that, guys? They all use eating because to be progressive, it has to end in ing. And that's the bit of learning I really want you to soak in and for you to think about right now. The bit before it is just required to make it make sense. So the past tense verb was solidifies the fact that this is in the past tense now. Dylan was eating. The present tense verb is solidifies that this sentence is in the present tense. Dylan is eating. And the future tense will be solidifies this last sentence being in the future tense. All 3 of them use an ing version of the verb, but they all use a different verb beforehand to help us understand what actual tense it's in. So progressive using ing. Now we're going to move on to the perfect tense. Now this is the one I think from my experience that most people start to get confused with. Okay, so here's the perfect tense, all right? And we're going to write them in as we go. So Dylan had eaten a chocolate bar. I want you just to hear them to see if it even makes sense to you. Dylan has eaten a chocolate bar. Dylan will have eaten a chocolate bar. Okay, so a little bit like the last one, the actual verb for eat is the same in all 3. And if we go back to the simple tense, it was the verb that was changing, wasn't it? Ate, eats, and eat. In the progressive, it was eating, 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 and in the perfect, it's eaten, eaten, eaten. So clearly, it's about the word beforehand, once again, that's changing how this is presented, the fact that this is in the perfect tense. So, first of all, the rule. To be in the perfect tense, the verb must sound like it's been completed. Okay? Eaten sounds like it's done, it's happened, right? Even when it's in the present and the future tense, the verb still sounds like it's been completed. Okay? So that's one thing you could jot down. You could think, okay, perfect tense, completed verbs. And then you have to use has, have, or had before that verb to indicate whether we are working in the past, the present, or the future. Okay, so when I say have, it could also be will have. Okay, had, has, and have. So they're your three words that you want to think about. Now you might be looking at this and rightfully thinking the first one sounds like it's in past tense. Dylan had eaten a chocolate bar. Fair enough. Sounds like the past tense. But you might also be thinking this present perfect sentence also kind of sounds like it's in the past tense, right? Dylan has eaten a chocolate bar. That sounds like that's already happened. And you'd be absolutely right to question that. It does sound like it's already happened, but it is still in the present perfect tense. Now, the biggest confusion I see with people learning this is the difference between had and has. You need to remember that had is only used for the past tense, and has is only used for the present tense. Okay, that's the really big key indicator. Will have eaten a chocolate bar still sounds like it's in the future because of that lovely word will. So I'm just going to put in here had, has, and will have, and you can fill in the verb yourself. Now, what I want to do, because I don't want you to be confused right now, so I thought, okay, this is not a very nice example for really seeing the difference between past and present. So I've got another example for you where I think it's a little bit more obvious. So have a look at this one. I've got the sentence, and it's using the verb to know. Dylan had known Hayden for years, and Dylan has known Hayden for years. I think this time you can hear that, you can feel maybe the difference, right, in this past tense and present tense version of the perfect verb form, the perfect tense. Dylan had known Hayden for years. It sounds like that's been completed and it was done in the past. He doesn't know him anymore. Dylan had known Hayden for years, but he doesn't anymore. Fair enough. Whereas this present perfect one, Dylan has known Hayden for years. It's still using that past tense version of the verb, known, like we had in the last one, eaten. But the word has makes it sound like, even though the idea of the act of knowing has been completed, he still knows him. Dylan has known Hayden for years, and he still does. Can you hear the difference there, right? And then the future tense is nice and obvious. Dylan will have known Hayden for years. It's like, yeah, okay, in the future I will still have known him. Okay, that sort of thing. All right, so that's one example. Let's try another one, but this time maybe you guys can have a go at actually adding it in. So this time I want, rather than using the verb to know, I want to use the verb to train, as in like when you're training for something, right? You're training for an event. An athlete trains for an event, right? But I want to put it into these sentences. I want one of them in the past, just like we've been doing, one in the present, and one in the future. And I want them all to be in the perfect tense. So I want you to actually pause the video for a minute and think out loud, what would we be putting in these gaps to make them in the past perfect, present perfect, and future perfect? Okay, so firstly, we remember our rule, don't we, of using had, has, or have with the word will if needed, okay? So had is for the past, so I want to use had here. So the athlete had train for this event doesn't make sense. So we're going to have to modify our verb slightly, like we have been doing with the other ones. We're going to put the athlete had trained, okay? So the simple past tense for this would have just been the athlete trained for the event, okay? Now, because we've involved the word had, it's now in the perfect tense. Now for the second sentence, we're going to change it from had to has. The athlete has trained for this event. And then finally, the athlete will have trained for this event. All right, again, I'm going to focus on these two right here. Hopefully you can see the slight difference here in how the tense feels. The athlete had trained for this event. It makes it sound like the training happened in the past and it's already been completed in the past as well. Like there's been time between him or her finishing training and doing the event. The athlete has trained for this event makes it sound a lot more in the present, like they've been training up until the very last minute and it's for this event right now. The athlete has trained for this event. Okay, like the training has been completed, but it's just happened, rather than had trained, like they could have done it years ago. The athlete had trained for this event 5 years ago. The athlete has trained for this event right now. Okay, and the athlete will have trained for this event in the future tense. I hope that makes a little bit more sense, guys, because the perfect tense is really, really tricky to understand. But let's take a look at another example. Now, this time, as you can see, I have given you the verb, which is to jog. Or I've given you the base verb, and I want you to have a go at putting it in all 9 of these places. So I want it in the past, present, and the future, the simple version, the progressive version, and the perfect version. Hopefully using what you've learned along the way to help you. Now, just a quick reminder before I let you pause this video and have a go. Simple tense, 1 word. Unless it's future, you might need the word will. Progressive tense, it needs to end in ing. Make it make sense with another verb before it. Perfect tense, had, has, or have. Have a go at this one. See if you can do all 9. And if it's a little bit overwhelming, don't worry. Come back and I'll go through them all. Let's do this. Let's dive straight in. So to jog. In the simple tense, we want to keep it 1 word. So the past version of this is they jogged. A lot of words, you can add ed to the end of them. If you have to double the consonant, that's fine. The present tense is just jog. They jog to the shops. Okay, we've kept it nice and simple, 1 word. And the future tense obviously uses the word will. They will jog to the shops. Easy, done. Simple tense, we've been doing it for years. We know it, all right? We know that like the back of our hand. Progressive tense means I need to use the word jogging in all 3 of them. So let's make them make sense with another verb before. Past tense, they were jogging. They were jogging. Notice it's not they was jogging. We use were when it's a plural because they means more than 1 person. If it was 1 person like I, it'd be I was jogging. They were jogging. In the present tense, it's they are jogging. Okay, so I'm using my were and are. And in the future tense, it will be they will be jogging. Okay, so progressive tense, ing, done. Perfect tense. If you see perfect, just jot this down for yourself. Had, has, have. Which one makes sense? In the past tense, we use had, right? So they had jogged to the shops? No. There's one more rule I haven't really taught you, which is this. To write in the perfect tense, you have to use has, or have plus what we call the past participle of the verb. Now, I'm not going to go into even more depth here of what that is, but just think the verb has to be in the past tense as well. So the past participle of jog is jogged. So to make all 3 of these, we're going to need to use had, has, or have, and the word jogged in a combination to do this. So let's use had for perfect. They had jogged. Okay? In the present tenses, they have. Now notice it's not has because it's plural again, so it changes it. They has jogged. Doesn't sound right. They have jogged. Okay. Oh, jogged. I put a V in it for some reason. They have jogged, and in the future will be they will have. They will have jogged. So in this example, we didn't actually use the word has for any of them. That's okay. Sometimes it changes. Whereas had is pretty much always nailed on to be used for the past tense. Sometimes the present and future can be has or have, depending on what makes the most sense. So there we go, guys. Really, it's a lot of stuff. I know, it's a lot of stuff. So what I'm going to do now is let you soak this all in with a bit of a summary. All right, this is what I remember as a teacher when I'm trying to teach people how to understand this, and I want to simplify it. This is what I do. I go, right, simple tense, think 1 word. And the word will for the future tense, but think the verb is just 1 word. Run, ran, will run. Okay? Progressive tense, just think the verb needs to end in ing, and then you add something else, another verb before it, like were, was, will be, to make it make sense. Okay, so just use your common sense, but it has to use ing. Think, progressing, progressive, progressing, it's still happening, end in ing. And finally, perfect tense, just think, use has, had, or have, plus the verb in the past tense like we were just discussing. Okay, so if you can jot all of this down and remember this, then you'll be in a really, really good place. And like I said at the beginning of the video, this is, in my opinion, possibly the hardest grammar objective to get your head around. Okay, I think a lot of people struggle to understand this, so don't worry if you're finding it a bit confusing. Right, what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to actually go ahead and look at some actual questions that have come up in SATs papers using this knowledge. Okay, simple tense, progressive tense, and perfect tense. But before we do that, of course, if you've been watching our videos recently, you'll know that you can now scan our QR code. If you want to go and check out some more resources, if you want your children to learn so much more about the SATs, or maybe you've got children in year 4 or year 5 and they're studying for their 11 plus, we've got a website of, Dylan and I have spent a long time making a huge bank of premium videos. Every single video comes with a homework task, and every homework task comes with another walkthrough video. So do go and check them out. There's a few resources on there for free to get you started. So just scan that QR code and head over to the link. Okay, so here we go. Let's get started then with some actual SATs questions. Each time, what I'm going to do is we're going to treat this like the real SATs. I'm going to let you pause the video. I want you to read it and have a go yourself. And then when you unpause the video, I'll read it and go through it. Tick one box in each row to show which form of the verb is underlined in each sentence. Okay, that's what we've been focusing this whole lesson on. Verb forms, past, simple, progressive, and perfect. Right. Nathan had hoped. Let's look for our clues. The fact that it has had in it makes me know straight away it's perfect. Okay, so we're going to do this fast. The children were rehearsing, ends in ing, progressive. Lots of parents came to watch. It's one word, it's simple. Do you see how quick that was when you know the little tricks? I wonder if you felt the same way. Here's your next question. Off you go. Which sentence is closest in meaning to the one below? My dad has had this bike for 2 years. Now, this is a really sneaky question because it doesn't say what tense are we in, but it does require you to kind of understand that we are working in the perfect tense, right? And it's using has. Now, I know it says it uses has and had. This is a very confusing one because it uses had as the main verb, and then it uses has as the bit before it to determine that it's in the perfect tense. So remember, it could have been my dad had had this bike for 2 years. You can actually have had back to back like that in sentences. Grammatically correct. I know, very confusing. But this one is has had. So it suggests that it's in the present perfect tense. Now, understanding that is going to help us pick the sentence that is closest in meaning, because the closest in meaning means we need to get the tense right. My dad no longer has this bike. Okay. If it was in the past perfect tense, you might be able to argue that. But it says, my dad has had this bike for 2 years, which suggests even though the act of getting the bike has been completed by this verb, it suggests that he still has it. Okay? So that doesn't make sense. He's no longer got it. My dad is having this bike for his birthday. I don't really think it has any relevance to that, does it? That's just a random one. My dad has this bike now. Now, this makes the most sense because it uses the same past perfect verb as the actual sentence. So I'm thinking this is the best answer. My dad will have a bike in 2 years' time. It's nothing to do with the future tense at all. So even just a bit of common sense, guys, you can get rid of the second one and the fourth one really easily. And it was just between these two right here. The first one was a really good trap answer because it does feel like it's in the past tense, right? Because of the word had. But we know that has makes it in the present perfect tense. So the third one is our best answer. That is, in all honesty, probably the hardest question I've ever seen in the SATs when it comes to the perfect tense. Let's have a look at another one. Off you go. Right, we're looking for past perfect. Guys, we're getting good at this now. We know that means it needs to have had, right? Before it, had, and then the verb. And the verb needs to be in past tense as well. Soon after a Frenchman something the first land speed record, it was broken. Soon after a Frenchman set the first land speed record. That would be lovely, simple past tense, wouldn't it? And it would make sense. But we want the past perfect, which means we're going to have to use the word had before it, which means the second one is my answer. Has set would be present perfect. Again, that's probably the trap answer right here, what most people would put. Or they would just guess between the top two. But we now know that the past perfect means it starts with had rather than has. Was setting is in the progressive tense, just for a bit of fun there, which we now know because we've learned all about it. All right, here's your next question. Have a go. It's another great way of wording the question because it's not saying, oh, do we want to use the past perfect or the present perfect? It's just asking you to fill in the gap and you have to kind of work it out yourself. Now, it said, after Disha something her medal, she gave a television interview. Now, the huge clue in how this sentence is supposed to be is the fact that in the next clause, we're in the past tense. She gave. It's not she gives or will give. It's she gave a television interview. And but considering this is just a fronted adverbial to this main clause, it needs to be in the same tense. Otherwise, it will sound weird. So because this is in the past tense, we're going to get rid of anything in the present tense. So is not right. And had, has, or was. Now, was and had sound like they're in the past tense, right? However, let's have a look. Has we can get rid of because we now know, don't we, that means it's in the present perfect tense. And we don't want the present perfect tense, we want the past tense. So out of these two past tenses, which one works best? We've got the present perfect here, the past perfect here, had collected, and we've got the past progressive here. So now it's just down to what actually sounds right in the sentence. After Disha was collecting her medal, she gave a television interview. That kind of makes it sound like, it doesn't sound right, does it? Because progressive makes it sound like it's still happening right now. After Disha was collecting her medal. So the word after and was collecting, they just don't work, do they? Because this one suggests it's already happened because you're already saying afterwards. And this suggests it's still happening because of the ing. So that doesn't work. This one should work perfectly fine. Let's work it out. After Disha had collected her medal, she gave a television interview. There we go. So there's a really good example of why, despite this being really tricky and probably one of my least favorite things to teach, it does give you an example of why we do actually use these different verbs, these different verb forms, these different tense forms, okay? There we go. Another hard question. Right, let's do another one. Underline the verb form that is in the present perfect in the passage below. So I'm doing a lot of perfect tense ones here, guys, because you know what? They actually come up quite a lot in the test. I found a lot more of them. So we know present means has or have. Let's have a look. Rachel loves music and has wanted... Oh, we found it straight away. Look at that. Underline the verb form that is in the present perfect in the passage below. Has wanted. Done. Okay? You could have also just done wanted and you would have got the mark as well because you're showing that you understand where the verb is. Simple as that, okay? Just for a bit of fun, let's go through the other ones. She was hoping. Look, it's got ing, so we know that's in progressive. And was delighted. That's just the simple past tense, right? When her parents gave her a keyboard for about it. Yeah, so really good stuff. Another simple past tense one there. So the answer we were looking for was has wanted. Fantastic. All right, another one for you. This time, we're looking at the progressive tense. Okay, we're back. Rewrite the underlined verb so that it's in the past progressive. We know progressive means it needs to have ing. We can see that the verb is walked, so turn that into an ing word and it makes walking. Last step is to make it make sense because currently it says Alexandra walking home. Well, we need to make it in the past tense, so is walking home sounds like the present tense. Was walking home. There you go. Past progressive. Can you see that? Next question. Another one. Another progressive tense. Okay, so we want present progressive. So we want ing and probably the word is or am, depending on how the sentence actually is presented. So what's the verb for a start? Or we don't know. Oh, interesting, because we've got a tick one this time. So the verb, quite clearly from looking at them, is upload. So we want the word uploading for it to be in the progressive. And something funny happens here. When you look through them, there's only one with uploading anyway. So they've not even made this question hard. They could have at least had two options that have uploading in them, but maybe different verbs before, like I was uploading, I am uploading. So the fact that we just know the rule of progressive needs to be ing made this question unbelievably easy to do. All right, there's nothing more to it. Okay, one more. Here we go. In fact, we've got one more after this and then we'll stop. Rewrite the underlined verbs in the sentence below so that they are in the present progressive form. So this time, this is interesting. For this year, you had to get both of them right to get the 1 mark. So present progressive. So learns, I always jot above it what the verb is with ing, and then I think, how do I make it make sense? Jim learning French at school. No. If I want it in the present, it needs to be is, not was. Jim is learning French at school. Done. There's my first half of my mark. Plans becomes planning. So I've written that down. Now let's make it make sense. He planning to ski in the Alps. Well, just like above, we're going to use is to make it in the present tense and make it make sense. He is planning to ski in the Alps in this spring. So there we go. I hope we're getting the hang of this, guys. I've got one final question to go through with you, and then I'm going to leave you at the end of this video with a question for you to solve in the comments section. So do stick around till the end. Have a go at this one. There's a really interesting thing that happens with this question. And the reason I picked this one is because I want to show you one final trick. If you are still finding the verb forms, the tense forms quite tricky, look at this question and ask yourself, is it even relevant that they're both in the progressive if the only difference to determine between them is whether it's in the present or the past tense? Honestly, not really. You could solve this question without even knowing what progressive is and just focus on the fact that we got to tick whether it's in the present or the past. I think we could work that out anyway, right? Joey was. I mean, I already know that this is in the past tense. Yeah? Just for good measure, we know it's past progressive because it was playing. Joey's football skills are improving. Okay, well, that's in the present tense, isn't it? I didn't need to know about progressive, about the ing thing. I just needed to recognize that are means it's in the present and was means it's in the past. Last one. Joey is hoping to be a professional footballer. Okay, is. Present tense. So a weirdly easy question disguised within something that looks quite tricky. Okay. Now, most of the other questions, we did actually really need to know what progressive meant and what perfect meant. But in this case, sometimes if you're lucky enough, you can kind of just work it out just by knowing what past and present tense are or future tense are anyway. Right, guys, it's been a bit of a long video today. And in all honesty, we've probably done about 3 or 4 lessons worth of learning in one 25-minute video. So let me know how you feel in the comments below. Do you understand the verb tense forms a little bit better now? Simple tense, progressive tense, and perfect tense. Is it still super confusing to you? Let me know so I can help you even more, guys, with future videos. So what I do want you to do as well, other than scanning the QR code and checking out our free resources on our website, is leave a comment below as well answering this question. Can you write, I taught my sister to skateboard in the present progressive tense? Good luck, guys. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.